Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the PFN Scouting Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Miller, joined, as always, by my co-host, Ian Cummings, and we're not screwing around today. We're getting right into it. We are doing a mock draft, 32 picks in less than 45 minutes for two guys who like to talk. That is going to be really difficult. But first, as always, even though we're moving fast today, I have to ask, Ian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm going to be doing even better when I beat you in fantasy this week. We are actually playing each other. Both teams are 5-2. Both teams are running hot. I think I've got a 5-game win streak. You've got a 4-game win streak. So it's a battle of the Titans. We will see what happens, man. I'm excited, but even more excited for this mock draft. We spent 24 hours just going pick by pick. Did I take odds? I took odds.
You took odds. Yeah.
You took evens, and we just kind of went back and forth. And it was a really fun exercise. I mean, every mock draft is fun. I think mock drafts are, they get a little bit of a bad rap this time of year, right? Like, it's all about addressing different possibilities and scenarios. It's not saying what's going to happen. It's really an exploratory exercise, and we really indulged in that this time around. So I had a lot of fun. How do you want to rattle off the picks real quick? Do you want to go back and forth?
We're going to go back and forth. You're going to take the odds that you picked. I'm going to take the evens. We have a couple that we really want to discuss for a couple of minutes at a time, but the rest of them, we're going to make the picks. We're going to say one quick thing about them and then get to the next one.
All right. Well, hey, I let it off with Drake Maye going to the Chicago Bears, number 1 overall. Basically, simply, if the Bears are picking that high, probably a regime change, probably a QB change. And I like Maye. He's my QB1 right now. So that's my pick for number 1. What'd you have at number 2, Dalton?
Yeah, number 2, the Arizona Cardinals. Very easily could have went with Caleb Williams here, but I went with Marvin Harrison Jr. This is bolded, so I assume that you have a question about it.
Yeah, really just what was the decision with passing on a QB? Because obviously Caleb Williams has been hyped up this entire cycle, and I know it's been a little rocky the last few weeks, but nothing has changed regarding him as a very, very good quarterback prospect, an investment for the future. But I assume you're keeping Kyler Murray for the long haul.
Yes, with the contractual situation with him not playing yet so far this year, and I think he'll come back and he will play. I think that team is going to try to do what they can to surround him with weapons and see what they can actually get done with him at the quarterback position, because they do have some contractual situation to get through with him before.
Here's a question that I also want to ask. How different is Caleb Williams from Kyler Murray, right? Because that was something that kind of stood out when I was thinking about it. Like, hey, would I rather have Caleb Williams and some veteran receiver that might not have as high a ceiling as Marvin Harrison Jr., or can I have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray? Is Murray all that different? Are you really sacrificing that much by keeping him and going with MHJ?
I mean, I think that when you look at Caleb Williams, you're looking at somebody who is even more creative than Kyler Murray is as a passer. As a runner, it's not really that close. I think Kyler Murray is a different level of athlete, and Caleb Williams is actually a very good runner. He makes the first guy miss at an incredibly high rate. But I think when you look at it, they are going to do what's best, what they think is best for them to try to win a couple of games next year. And I think that pairing Kyler Murray with somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., who we both think is going to hit the ground running at the next level, is the better pairing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you go by the raw ranking, I mean, MHJ is my top overall prospect, right? So it's like the dude is, we've seen the word generational thrown around a lot, but he's about as close as it gets, and I think he showed that with this Penn State game. So no complaints for me, just quarterback versus non-quarterback, always a discussion for those top teams to have. Number 3 for the Chicago Bears, I picked Dallas Turner, edge out of Alabama. I really thought about a wide receiver, but I didn't know if there was a guy worth picking quite this high besides MHJ, and I thought getting the top defensive talent for a team that really needs edge production. Turner isn't quite at Will Anderson Jr.'s level as a prospect, but the tools are absolutely there. Explosive, bendy, incredible length too. So I think the full foundation is there to really grow into a defensive weapon and a game changer.
With the 4th pick in our mock draft, I took Caleb Williams to the Denver Broncos, and this one's pretty simple. I don't think, and it's tough because when you look at what Russell Wilson is as a quarterback and you look at what Caleb Williams is as a quarterback, there are a lot of similarities there. Now, Caleb Williams is a much better athlete at this point in his life than Russell Wilson is at this point in his life. And I think that overall the arm talent with Caleb Williams is on another level when it comes to creative ability. And I think that you're going to see that head coach who does not give a crap about hurting people's feelings will move on from Russell Wilson if he has the opportunity.
Nice. I love it. I went quarterback number 5 as well, New York Giants, picking J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. And I know this is the first one.
I just got to ask, they just paid Daniel Jones $40 million. This is the direction that you went here. You have to explain yourself.
I know. And, you know, part of me making this pick was like, I just want to cause some chaos, man.
Yeah, this is chaos. This is
chaos for sure. But here's the question that I was asking. What is more damaging? Moving on from Daniel Jones right now? Not right now. You know, I think he's got a contractual out, a potential out in 2025. So after 2024, with around 22 million in dead cap, right? It's going to be really costly. But here's the thing. What's more damaging? That or sticking with a guy that you know is not the guy for 4 years? And you have a young core that's building. You drafted Deonte Banks, who's already become a very good young cornerback. Andrew Thomas on the offensive line. You've got Dexter Lawrence. You've got Kayvon Thibodeau, right? You know, I don't think the young core for this team is complete, but I do think it's starting to build to that level where, you know, if you stick with Daniel Jones for the next 4 years, you might waste some of that talent, right? So I'm looking at this quarterback class and I look at what J.J. McCarthy has done this year. For me, Daniel Jones, what he was going to max out as was a top 15 guy, right? And I think last year in particular, he showed that he could be that, right? A guy who's a solid game manager, who's, you know, accurate enough, right? Who's efficient enough if he has really good structure in place for him. But this year, the offensive line has regressed, not great playmakers. And yeah, there are some excuses to make for him. But at the same time, I don't know if he has the talent to elevate his unit. And I don't know if he has the elite processing ability. I know he doesn't have the elite processing ability to counteract that. So I'm pretty certain that he's not the guy for New York. And how much time do you want to waste on a QB like that? For me, if you have an opportunity to cut your losses, yeah, it's the tough move, but I also think it's the high character move. I think it's the high, you know, willpower move, right? Some teams don't have the willpower to say like, hey, we were wrong so quickly into this kind of process. But I look at a passer like J.J. McCarthy, who is athletic, who is very, the arm talent is very distinct with him. You know, it's clearly higher level than Daniel Jones. And then the growth that he's shown in structure so far this year, navigating the pocket, making quick decisions, the risk propensity to anticipate really tight windows. I think just overall, he's a better prospect than Jones ever was. And I think getting him at the front end of this young core building up, I think that could be a really good move for the Giants. It's going to be tough to make in the short term, but I think in the long term, it's ultimately less damaging than wasting 4 years on Daniel Jones and resetting down the line. And that's my thought process here. It's going to be a tough move to make, but ultimately I do think it will be better down the road.
Oh, it's a progressive move. My entire left hamstring just balled up and curled up. That was painful for a second. We're moving on to the 6th pick, which is the New England Patriots, who have been kind of painful on offense so far this season, and they suck. They are terrible at drafting and developing wide receivers. So they're not going to do that. They are going to draft a tight end that is Brock Bowers. And I call him a tight end. He's a tight end. He's a wide receiver. He's literally whatever you want him to be. He's one of the best players in college football. And that is the 6th pick to the New England Patriots.
Number 7, Green Bay Packers. You need an offensive tackle. David Bakhtiari is going to be out the door soon. Yeah, I mean, he's done. So I think, you know, Jordan Love, there is a conversation to be had. If he doesn't progress down the line, maybe pick a quarterback in this class. I'm not quite at that point yet. I want to give him more time. I want to give him more support. So I'm taking the player who was elevated to my OT1 status, Joe Alt, Notre Dame, athletic, flexible, really improved his hand usage and his strength as well. I think he's the complete package.
I think that's a fantastic pick, and another fantastic pick with the 8th selection in the NFL draft. The Los Angeles Chargers select Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU.
This I bolded for multiple reasons.
You're just mad that I stole him from you.
I'm not mad. I am mad. I literally messaged Dalton after this because I had the at number 9, I had the Titans, and I was circling Neighbors. I did not expect them to pick Neighbors at all with this pick. I was like, all right, I know what my next pick is. I know I can, like, you know, kick back, kick my feet up and relax. And then he picked Neighbors. And I'm like, all right, well, we're throwing it out the door. But a few questions I have for this one. Number 1, what does this mean for Quentin Johnson? They picked him in round 1 this past year. And me personally, as an evaluator, he was my wide receiver 1, but I've kind of been reevaluating because he hasn't hit the ground running. It's been a little bit tougher for him to integrate. For me as an evaluator, it's shown me that separation ability and ease of separation. Maybe can't take it for granted as much. Maybe I need to scrutinize a little bit more with guys who it does come easy to. You know, I thought he had the flexibility and the bend to get there, but it's going to take a while for him to get there. And some guys never hit it because of the pressure when you hit the NFL level. But what does this mean for Quentin Johnson, the round 1 investment this year? You got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams still. I don't know. I forgot about their contract statuses, but what does that mean for Quentin Johnson and the wide receiver room moving forward with Neighbors entering the fold?
Yeah, with Keenan Allen, he's starting to get up there in age. He's still a fantastic wide receiver. Mike Williams can't stay healthy. That's a problem. And they have no speed on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to at least wide receiver. And Quentin Johnson has speed, but he doesn't have the type of speed that is necessarily like that actual downfield threat that they really need. And, Zay Flowers is a guy who was staring them in the face, and they could have selected and did not. And I thought that was the messy move that probably should have happened. But Malik Neighbors in the next season, coming in and being that kind of third wide receiver to start, but being able to play on the outside. And I think that allows you to put Quentin Johnson in a role to where you can use him a little bit more as a big slot and get him some manufactured touches and just let him do what he was really good at doing at TCU, which was get the ball in his hands, allow him to make plays after the catch. So that's kind of where I am at with Quentin Johnson and where I'm at with Malik Neighbors and why I decided to select him there.
Yeah, I'll give you an opportunity now for like 30 seconds, just wax lyrical about his fit with Justin Herbert, because that feels insane to me. That feels,
yeah. I mean, slot fit. I say it's going to be a great fit with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert has not played well the past couple of weeks. He's still one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and when we're just talking about physical ability, he's top 5. But I think when you look at it, that slot fade that we've been seeing so much from Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels this year is the same kind of thing that you could see next season. And then also just his ability on the outside, those routes that are those not 50-50s, but the stop routes where he's using his physicality to come back to the ball. Justin Herbert is fantastic at leveraging passes away from tight coverage, and he has the physicality and ability to go and make those catches as well. So I think it's a good fit overall.
I love it. I hate it because I wanted Neighbors for the Titans at 9, but I love it. Number 9 for the Titans, Neighbors was my first pick. When he got taken away, I pretty much zeroed in on offensive tackle because Andre Dillard has not been good this year. You need a left tackle for whoever is playing quarterback in the future. And yeah, or ever, right? But whoever is the quarterback in the future for Tennessee, you need proper protection, right? So number 9 overall, I'm going Olu Fashanu, Penn State. He had a bit of a rough outing late in the game against JT Tuimoloau. It's important to note that Tuimoloau does have an elite power component. The bend, those parts of his game, the finesse, a little bit less, but the power is definitely awe-inspiring with him. So Fashanu wasn't perfect, but I still think Fashanu has arguably the best combination of physical tools and refinement in this class. I think Alt's ceiling is higher, and I do think Alt has really closed the gap from that technical perspective. But Fashanu is still a top 10 prospect and still a bookend left tackle.
Yeah, and with the very next pick, the man who dominated him for a couple of snaps in the fourth quarter, JT Tuimoloau. Wow. The New Orleans Saints select JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State, the defensive end. I don't even call him an edge. He is a legitimate hand-in-the-dirt defensive end, and that's the reason why the New Orleans Saints selected him. And it's just the quintessential New Orleans Saints draft selection.
Yeah, they love those big edge guys. And so I saw the fit, and it's like top 10, a little rich for me still, even after that game. But, you're looking at the Saints and what they prefer, you can definitely see it. And we've seen team fits kind of accelerate players and their value like that in April. So I can see that happening for sure. Number 11, I went with another quarterback. I went with Michael Penix Jr. From Washington. I just think, I don't know. I'll let you ask your questions first because I saw it's bolded. So
it's high. It's high. He's been fantastic so far this year, but with the injury history, I wonder what his ceiling actually is. That said, the Raiders, I think long-term absolutely need a quarterback. It's a little bit weird for me to see somebody who isn't more of a project. I think J.J. McCarthy would be a great pick here, somebody who could develop a little bit behind Jimmy Garoppolo because they are going to have Jimmy Garoppolo around for a couple more seasons. But Penix, with the way that he's played so far this year, it's actually kind of difficult to argue against him going in the first round.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, if I'm looking for a pocket passer in today's day and age, like I want them to have that driving velocity. I want them to be willing to take risks and, test those tight windows. I want them to be decisive, accurate, right? And Penix to me checks all those boxes. And not to mention the poise, the competitive toughness, right? I mean, the dude is incredibly resolved in the pocket too. And we talked a little bit about that after his Oregon game. So for me, Penix Jr. has all the tools that I'm looking for from a pocket passer, along with enough passable athleticism to, sidestep rushers and create space within the pocket when he needs to. So for me, the injuries are interesting because you look at Jimmy G, a quarterback who's also dealt with injuries. This Raiders front office might not be inclined to test another quarterback with medical issues, but even taking that into account too, Josh McDaniels, I'm not sure if he sticks around if they continue to struggle this year. Dave Ziegler, I'm not sure. Maybe there's a change in the front office if they continue to struggle this year, and the Raiders team hasn't been built very well. There's a lot of bloated contracts. So, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking maybe there's a complete change. And if there's a complete change, you might be looking at quarterback at number 11. Penix Jr., I think, is a guy who can hit the ground running with his operational skill set, but then also elevate the offense and its targets. You look at Devontae Adams. If they keep him past this year, I would love to see him and Penix play in the same offense for a year or two. I would love that. That would be incredible. And then Jacoby Myers as well. I think he can be a Jalen McMillan type for Penix at this level. I think, that reliable chain mover, red zone threat guy who can just really get those completions down. So for me, Penix Jr., I think outside of those top three guys, JJ McCarthy is risen to my QB3 spot again. But past those guys, Penix Jr. to me, has the arm talent, the toughness to make it happen at the next level with his intangible tools. So that was the thought process for the Raiders picking him. I think Jimmy G does give you a bridge quarterback in the near short-term future, but also the injuries, the interceptions, the turnover-worthy plays. I don't know how long you can rely on him in that role.
At number 12, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and they went with Kool-Aid McKinstry. This one's pretty easy for me. They need a little bit of help in the secondary at cornerback specifically, and Kool-Aid McKinstry is very, 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 very good in zone coverage, and that defense runs a lot of zone coverage. They also run a little bit of cover zero. They'll show cover zero a bunch. That they're a very multiple secondary with what they do on the back end, and that's something that Kool-Aid McKinstry would do a very good job of at the next level because he does a fantastic job of it at Alabama as well. At number 13.
Yeah, real quick, Kool-Aid McKinstry in purple and gold. I love that aesthetic. Another aesthetic I love, Keon Coleman in that blue and white with Anthony Richardson, number 13 of the Colts. I'm going Keon Coleman from Florida State. You bolded this one pretty late, just right before the podcast today. So tell me, what questions you got?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to bring up the fact that this is the perfect pick for the Indianapolis Colts. They need that X receiver. They need their A.J. Brown in this offense with Shane Steichen. I love Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's a fantastic compliment. He's not that number one alpha guy that Keon Coleman is. So I think this is a fantastic team and player fit here. At number 14, the Washington Commanders take J.C. Latham. They just need offensive line help. I mean, they need more than just offensive line help, but the offensive line help at right tackle, I think, is a good fit for the Washington Commanders right now.
I went with the right tackle at number 15 for the Rams, although he will play left tackle for the Rams. They have Rob Havenstein at right tackle, but I'm going with Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. This was one of the toughest picks that I made in this mock because the Rams have a lot of potential needs and a lot of good value players at this point. But I just ended up, Matthew Stafford is getting older. He's still playing very well, so I want to try and maximize that. I want to solidify his protection unit. Talise Fuaga, for me, he's a natural right tackle. But I look at Tristan Wirfs, a player at Tampa Bay who is, a phenomenal athlete, very coordinated mover as well. And he made the move to the left side this year and ended up, flourishing. So I think Talise Fuaga, I think one of his strong points as a prospect is coordination too. So I do think he could pull off that move if he wanted to put him on the left side, let him go to work. He's a near blue chip talent for me in this class. So one of the top rated prospects remaining at a premier position of need for me, that ended up sealing the deal. Talise Fuaga to the Rams at 15.
The Arizona Cardinals select Latu, edge, UCLA. He is a lot of people's favorite edge rusher in this class, and I don't think that the ceiling is as high as Dallas Turner is. For me, Dallas Turner is the top guy, but I have actually sat down. I've watched a little bit of Latu's tape, and I'm incredibly impressed with the package that he brings to the table. I think his hands are fantastic, and I think for the Arizona Cardinals, he's somebody who he has the athleticism to if he has to drop back into coverage. He's athletic enough. He's fluid enough. I just don't know how much explosiveness he has. He's not going to be a Hassan Reddick type of guy, but I still think that he's a good fit in Jonathan Gannon's defensive scheme. At number 17, who you got?
Number 17 to the New York Jets. I got Bo Nix from Oregon going quarterback here for the Jets. They could have gone tackle. I think they need to, elevate one of those tackle spots. Mekhi Becton has actually had a few good reps this year, so maybe they extend him. We'll see what happens there. But I was going quarterback long term, and I think I bolded this one, actually. I don't know if you bolded this one, but I wanted to, just touch on Bo Nix's fit in this offense. I really think that, Zach Wilson, you could see the vision when they picked him, right? The creation capacity, the play out of structure, right? The ability to make those game-changing throws. But one of his biggest downfalls was that he just couldn't be that distributor in structure, right? The on-rhythm throws, the accuracy, the poise, and the rhythm in those short window throws, it wasn't there. But I think one of Bo Nix's best traits so far in his resurgence at Oregon is that he has been that distributor. He's extremely accurate, especially on rollouts and design play action, boot actions. Like he's very, very composed. The shoulders are always level off platform, very accurate in structure, out of structure. And then just the ability to keep the chains moving, to keep the offense on structure or on rhythm. I think that's one of his greatest strengths in tandem with his high level creation capacity and arm talent. So looking at that, I think it could be an opportunity to right your wrongs with Zach Wilson. And on top of that too, having that ability in structure to keep things in rhythm, that can help you withstand adversity early on while you're kind of getting the longer progressions down, right? So I think Aaron Rodgers could be a great mentor for him. I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, Bo Nix has shown us a lot this time at Oregon. I think the Jets, they had a vision with that last pick, but I think they could fulfill it a little bit better with this one. Either way, they're going to have to look at QB in the near future. Aaron Rodgers is coming off an Achilles tear, so we'll see what happens. But long term, that was kind of the vision here.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad pick at all. And I think that the type of quarterback that Bo Nix is perfect for what they have to complement that defense, which is fantastic. Just play, not necessarily ball control, but plays a little bit of ball control, be smart with the football, be able to make some plays with your legs because he's able to do that as well. And more than anything, just take care of the ball and don't put your defense in a bad situation. Yeah. At number 18, the Cincinnati Bengals selected Jerzon Newton, defensive tackle, Illinois. And we're going to talk about it later, but I think that might be my favorite fit in this entire class.
Dude, I was messaging him after that, like, oh shoot, DJ Reader and Jerzon Newton, like, let's go.
And,
like,
I believe Reader and BJ Hill are both on the final years of their deal, and I don't know if they will resign either of those guys. So defensive tackle kind of is a need for them. But yes, pairing Newton with DJ Reader would be absolutely disgusting. Number 19.
Number 19, this was a tough one for me too. I had a few players that I was considering. I had a linebacker and a safety that I was considering. We ended up not having a linebacker or a safety picked in this entire first round, but I was considering two at this point. But I ended up taking...
That's not necessarily true, but I'll talk about that later.
That's right. I forgot. Let's keep them in suspense there. But for number 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I ended up taking the highest graded player remaining on my board, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. You bolded this one. What you got?
Yeah, you're just replacing Chris Godwin with Chris Godwin. Good. That's all you need to do. Yeah, good. That's a good job. Chris Godwin is on the final year of his deal next year, and in this trade deadline might be a trade candidate. Probably not, because I think Tampa Bay looks to compete this year still, but could be a player that moves if they lose on Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like in the immediate timeline too, like how he fits this offense. Like he can absolutely be that slot guy, but you can move him around everywhere. You can see him touches off motions. He can play on the boundary if he needs to. So I think Emeka Egbuka right now, in that 1 year that you're going to have all three of him, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, he can be that chess piece, right? He can really be that player, but then he's so good at carving through zones, beating man coverage with his leverage awareness, the really strong hands and the coordination to corral rack passes while keeping his stride, the explosiveness. I mean, to me, he checks every single box of that 3-level threat, and the versatility that he will give this offense is going to be very good. Baker Mayfield, I don't know if he's the guy long term, but credit to him, he has played admirably this year. And if you give him a little bit more time to sustain that growth within this offense, you give him another weapon with Emeka Egbuka who can take those rack passes. Who knows what they could do? I'm very excited. That defense is still really good. So if you get an Egbuka, complete that weapons core, you could be looking at some production down the
line. At number 20, the Atlanta Falcons select Chop Robinson, edge rusher, PSU. Listen, at some point, the Atlanta Falcons need to draft a young edge player that actually works out. And I think that he's the one to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, this is one, I didn't even bold this one, but just like Chop Robinson is probably one of my favorite players in the entire class. And looking at him as a stand-up edge rusher in that scheme, I mean, the dude, and you move him around too. Like he's a guy who can shade outside of 0 tech and 1 tech. Like he can loop around from interior alignments, but then at the same time, get him in a wide 7 or a wide 9, and he's got the explosiveness and the long strider gait to really cover ground with ease, and then the violent hands. I mean, to me, The dude is just a maniac out there. So I love getting him on the edge to kind of supplement that defense. At number 21, I have Buffalo Bills selecting Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. He's played very well this year when he's been healthy. He's got length at 6'2", really explosive, fluid, free-flowing athlete, but then really good coverage instincts. I think the route recognition ability, the quick reaction really is what sells me on him. And then the ball skills to convert at the catch point as well. So Nate Wiggins, he might have the inside track to my CB2 spot. We will see, but I think he's absolutely a first-round pick. And then you look at Tre'Davious White, coming off another major injury, probably not going to be able to stay healthy. I'm really concerned about that. And then Kaiir Elam, I really liked Elam as a prospect coming out, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out in Buffalo. So I think cornerback is still a major need on the boundary for the Buffalo Bills. And Nate Wiggins, to me, can really help solidify that.
Yeah, at number 22, the Dallas Cowboys select Cooper DeJean, defensive back, yes. Iowa. I do not list him as a corner. I do not list him as a safety, and that is exactly what the Cowboys want.
All right, well, I bolded this one, so yeah. What's your vision here? Dalton? Talk to us about it.
My vision is he's the new Jaron Kearse.
Okay.
You take the 6'2 kid, 6'3 kid, however tall Cooper DeJean is, and you use him as a return man if you would like to. But you also use him as that tight end eraser because I think that he has the fantastic ability and the length to cover some of the better tight ends in the NFL with that athletic package that he has. And on top of that, I think that he's fantastic in the box as a run defender as well. He's going to put on a little bit of weight, probably, 5-10 pounds over the course of time. It'll take time to do it well, but I think that it is a fun endeavor. The Cowboys love to play with multiple defensive backs on the field. They played with 3, sometimes even 4 safeties on the football field at one time. And I think that he's a guy who, even if there's a pinch and they need a boundary corner, and he might end up being a boundary corner for them as well, because he can play on the outside. That's what we've seen him do. He's on the boundary. He's a fantastic player overall as well. But I think for me, in my vision, you play him, more as an overhang type of guy.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about how he plays off of Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs in that corner room.
Yeah, for me, he's more of in that safety room. So Jaron Kearse moves away. He's no longer a Dallas Cowboy, and you just bring Cooper DeJean in for that role. But he's somebody who, if Trayvon Diggs gets hurt or if they're unable to upgrade CB2, I think that he's a great fit because, we've already seen him be able to take the ball away. We've seen his abilities to go and take the ball. So I think that it's a good fit because the Cowboys love those type of outward playmakers, even if they make some mistakes, even if they are a little bit aggressive at times. I think that they will take that to get that turnover.
Nice. I love it. I love the playmaking ability that he provides with the versatility too. I think that's a great pick. For the, what number are we on? 23. That's 23. Right. I forgot for a second. 23. The Pittsburgh Steelers select center Cedric Van Pran. There were a few other options that I was considering, but let's face it, you need a center upgrade. Mason Cole is pretty much an average starter, right? You need a guy who can get those reach blocks, who can explode to the second level, who can finish with physicality. Cedric Van Pran is my top center. I think he's explosive, really tenacious, really well leveraged. I think for me, he's easily the top center in the class. And for solidifying that offensive line with Kenny Pickett, I think that's, if you're going to get the most out of him, you need to solidify that line. You need to maximize it. And on top of that, getting him reunited with Broderick Jones, there's some good things with that pick. So Cedric Van Pran at the Steelers at 23.
And at number 24, the Houston Texans select Jared Verse, edge rusher, Florida State. I just think that he is a nice little yang to the yin of, oh my, why can't I dude, Will Anderson. Will Anderson's name just absolutely escaped me there for a second. My mind was somewhere else. No, I just think it's a good complementary fit. Somebody who plays with, maybe a little bit more power. I think Will Anderson is far more powerful than he was ever given credit for coming out of Alabama. But when I look at Verse, that is more of his game. The violence that he plays with, I think he's a little bit too stiff for what I like as a pure pass rusher, but I think the overall package is good enough, especially to take towards the end of round 1.
Yeah, for sure. I like that as well. I think the value is really good there. At number 25, I have the Seattle Seahawks picking defensive lineman Landon Jackson from Arkansas. I bolded this one because I want to talk about this guy. But first, have you caught any reps of him, Dalton, at Arkansas?
I sure have. I sure have. I'm gonna let you speak on him first, and then I'll come in with it.
All right. Well, first off, Landon Jackson, man, 3.5 sacks against Alabama. This dude, I'll be honest, I wish I'd gotten to him sooner because, looking at the tape, particularly against Alabama, I think he's been a little hot and cold, a little hit or miss outside of that. But when he's on, he is incredible. I mean, this is a guy who's around 6'7", 281, right? The dude is insanely built. He's got length. He's got really lean mass for his size. But at that size, man, he is working outside of the tackle. He is levying cross chops. He is using bend to get around the apex. And, he's cornering at almost 90 degrees on some of these reps, right? It's incredible, transitioning from upfield to lateral pursuit just like that. The flexibility is really incredible with him. And then the ability to multitask with hand usage around the apex, the ability to flow seamlessly from an arm over move right off the snap to a cross chop and just completely deconstruct opposing anchors and extensions. I mean, the dude is a technician with incredible flexibility. And for me, I caught his tape. There are a few questions I do have. I don't know if the burst is absolutely elite, right? The first step is absolutely elite, but he graded out extremely well for me, a well-rounded player with really good bend capacity for his size and agility too, to stunt across gaps. I think for the Seattle Seahawks team, you're looking at a guy who you could maybe add a few pounds to his frame and play him inside a little bit if you want to, play him outside. I think that alignment versatile chess piece is really the only thing that they're lacking. You've got Jerron Reed, you've got Boye Mafe, who's really coming into his own as that outside rusher. So you can put Landon Jackson at 5 tech in those over fronts, but you can move him inside if you want to, stun him around. I think really the flexibility, the possibilities that you have with Landon Jackson are numerous, and I would be very excited to see in the Seattle defense. This is one of the Seattle Seahawks picks that was kind of off the wall, right? Kind of what we've come to expect from them, right? A pick that's kind of a little, off the radar. But with this one in particular, I would be really giving them a nod, like saying like, hey, this is a good pick because he's a good football player and he's a good talent.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be an off-the-wall pick for a long time. I think that by the time we come around to it, Landon Jackson is going to be talked about in the first round quite a bit. And it's for a lot of the reasons why you said. I think for being 6'7" and for being 280 pounds, he does carry that weight incredibly well. I think that the power aspect of his game could get even better. I think that naturally it is there. I think that he maximizes his length really well as an edge setter running against the run. His stance is going to need fixed because it's very, very tight. The feet are very close together, and that often makes him shoot high, which is already not good for being 6'7". And I think that especially playing inside is when you see that quite a bit. It happened to him against Ole Miss, and I don't take a ton from the Alabama game. I love the hand usage. I love particularly the ability to hit those 90-degree angles at 6'7" and at his size. I think that he has good explosiveness. I think my biggest issue is that freshman left tackle at Alabama's got a lot to learn still. He's not a very good football player at the moment, not by Alabama standards. So I think when you look at that game, you do kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because he's been bad against pretty much everybody. The quarterback also does not help very much because he is also inexperienced at Alabama. But the moves themselves that he was putting together, especially against Alabama, were fantastic. I think that he shows good secondary effort. And I think that if you can fix his stance and get him a little bit more consistent off of the snap against the run, you can move him into the 4-eye and that 5 technique and play head up on people and shoot gaps. And I think that the one thing that I liked about him most is his ability to make plays across the field because he is so rangy. And it's just because every single step he takes is like 8.5 feet. He covers so much ground with those long legs, but he's also able to change direction very well for that size. So I think that he's somebody who is still coming together a little bit, but I think somebody who is going to be a really good football player at the next level, especially as he continues to grow into his body. We've talked about him enough. We got to move on. The 26th pick, the San Francisco 49ers select Amarius Mims, offensive tackle, Georgia. Just get a right tackle. Please, get a right tackle. Please, please, please. And when he's been on the field, he has been fantastic.
I love the fit for also Trent Williams is going to be, at some point think he'll be moving on. Maybe not. I mean, he's still
Maybe
going.
He'll play till he's 50. I don't know.
Maybe we'll see.
Still
But
good.
for the time being, while he's here, I love getting Amarius Mims to learn under Trent Williams because both these guys are freaky athletes at the tackle position. And if you can get Williams mentoring Mims for a few years, it could be just a dynastic combination for San Francisco when it comes to freaky offensive tackles. So I love that mentorship aspect. At number 27 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I've got them picking Princely Umanmielen, edge rusher from Florida. I think they should extend Josh Allen. He's playing out of his mind right now. I think Trayvon Walker is better than people let on. I do think he's still developing as a pass rusher, but that power element is there. The run stopping ability is there. But I think Umanmielen getting another consistent edge rusher, another consistent pass rusher in this rotation could really help them. And he's still growing in that regard, but the flashes in 2023 have been very good. We talked about him in the preseason. Like, this is a guy we want to see more from as a pass rusher. And I think we have seen that. I think the high-end reps, the spin moves, the bend around the corner for his size with his length, he's definitely got the tools to do that. And then he's a really good run defender already. So I think Umanmielen can complete this edge rushing rotation. You've got the absolute disruptor in Josh Allen. You've got the battering ram with Trayvon Walker. And you've got the guy with the two-phase upside and utility with Umanmielen. I think it could really be a completing piece for them.
And on top of all of that, I think the thing that stood out to me most about Umanmielen is a lot of what stood out to me with Will Anderson as well. The athleticism and fluidity to play in coverage with no issues whatsoever. I think Umanmielen, if you had him play off-ball linebacker, he could survive. I think that he's that athletic. He is definitely a pass rusher because he is all of 6'5", and he's got long arms, and he's got bend. He's got everything that you would want in a pass rusher, and he has shown improvement in his pass rush repertoire so far this season, along with being a good player against the run. So I like what I've seen from him so far for Florida. At number 28, the Baltimore Ravens select Kalen King, cornerback, Penn State. I like Brandon Stevens. I really like what they have with him. Marlon Humphreys is getting a little bit older, and the Baltimore Ravens continue to have issues in the secondary or on their football team in general with staying healthy. For me, it's just adding another piece. And somebody who I think is a really good click and close guy downhill, somebody who you might not want or need to line up and play a bunch of man coverage, but in Mike McDonald's offense or defense, that's not going to be a huge issue for him. He's going to be able to use that, tape study that he puts together, and the size issue won't be an issue for him as long as he's not having to play Marvin Harrison Jr. every week.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Kalen King, obviously a little bit of a rocky game against MSJ, but I mean, come on, everyone's going to have that, right? I think I don't think you count it against him too much, but you do take note the non-elite size-adjusted explosiveness and speed. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, but still a very good player. Number 29 for the Detroit Lions, I got Denzel Burke. I was kind of happy that Dalton didn't pick Burke because I thought about him. Yeah, dude, honestly, the way that he's been playing for Ohio State this year, he missed that Penn State game, unfortunately, with an injury. But 6'1", 193, I mean, he's back to his 2021 form and then some. He's been even better, I think, with his zone coverage, with his pedal efficiency and his transitioning in space, but then also in man coverage, fleet-footed, twitchy, explosive, physical. And then as a former wide receiver, he knows how to play the ball. So I think, for me, this Lions team, something they really prioritize with Dan Campbell was playing tough against the run, coming downhill with a ton of veracity, being physical against blocks and as a tackler. I think Denzel Burke definitely brings that. But on top of that, too, the two-phase coverage ability. For me, he is absolutely a round one corner prospect. There was some questions about it heading into the season, but I don't think there's any question now. He's a round one prospect. Cam Sutton has been incredible so far for the Lions, but Emmanuel Mosley got injured, and he's going to be a free agent. Jerry Jacobs is going to be a free agent, too. I think you re-up that boundary corner position, and Denzel Burke, for me, is the perfect value here.
Yeah, the reason I didn't take him for Baltimore is the injury history. That's the only reason why I didn't take him, because Baltimore can't stand to draft more injured guys, even if they are first-round talents. Miami Dolphins select offensive lineman Graham Barton from Duke. This is the twice now that I have done this. They love their versatility on the offensive line, and I think somebody like Graham Barton is able to bring that. I think that they have the right tackle that they want right now. I think that he's playing pretty well, or the right guard as well. The left tackle and left guard and possibly even center might be a little bit more of an issue for the Miami Dolphins, and, especially at left tackle, because Teron Armstead for as fantastic a player as he is, he just can't stay healthy. He's never been able to really stay healthy. That's always been the issue. And they need somebody to protect for Tua Tagovailoa. Having that versatility is the best thing about Graham Barton, in my opinion. So I think that they select him late and kind of just find a fit for him for the best 5 that they can put together.
Nice. Number 31 for the Kansas City Chiefs. I felt a little
illegal.
It felt a little illegal with this one, but we went with it anyway. I mean, it's the Chiefs, right? Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. You bolded this one. So what are we talking about here? Just how unfair it is.
Yeah. It's just gross to put somebody like Rome, who is such a good downfield receiver, and a playmaker, somebody who can create out of structure and really do a very good job showing those late hands on downfield passes as well. Penix has put so many balls just on a string down the field this year to Rome, and Rome shows great late hands. He's great at attacking the football in the air as well. I just think he's a perfect fit for somebody like Patrick Mahomes, who doesn't need a perfect fit because he is already perfect.
Yeah, you look at this wide receiver core and you're like, really, they're producing this much? Like, and it's not a bad receiver core.
And I like Rashee Rice. And
yeah,
it's cool to see Rashee be playing well for them. But to get a dude, Travis Kelce is getting older. And the love interest might start to pull him away from the game a little bit sooner than you might have expected from somebody like Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
But no. Travis will probably play for as long as he's still elite, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. When you look at Jason is older. Jason is playing on the offensive line and has been able to stay healthy and at the top of his game. Two Hall of Famers. So I think adding Rome Odunze, even in year 1 as a weapon, is going to be a huge uptick for this Kansas City offense that doesn't really need one.
Yeah, it boils down to, outside of Kelce, it's really been Mahomes elevating the wide receiver targets as opposed to the wide receiver targets elevating to his level and kind of playing off him. With Odunze, you get a first-round receiver talent who, you mentioned it, the late hands, the catching instincts are very good, but he's a complete 3-level threat. I mean, he can separate the smooth athleticism after the catch. This guy can do whatever you need him to do, and they're using him in motions more. He's showing his versatility. I think he checks every box for the Chiefs, and I think the way that he'll be able to play with these guys is really going to take that offense to the next level, which sounds scary because they're already at level 110 or whatever. They're in the clouds right now. This can take them to space.
And at number 32, the last pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select cornerback Kalen Carson from Wake Forest. You got 2 aging corners, and you're going to reset the clock there on that position with Kalen.
I've seen I've seen tape of Caleb. He was a favorite of mine heading into the season. So I think, the fleet-footed coverage ability, the physicality, the explosiveness. I'm a big fan of this one. I think right at the end of round 1, investing in him long-term, that's the way to go. So now we've got, through our picks, we've got a few quick hitters for each of us here. I think we've got enough time. So let's get right into it. Dalton, what was your toughest pick to make in this mock draft?
My toughest pick to make was the number 2, Arizona, with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams. I think that was the toughest one. I had a couple other tough ones, but that was the most difficult one for me. What about you?
Yeah. Toughest one for me, the Los Angeles Rams. Talise Fuaga was definitely up there, but I also wanted Chop Robinson. I wanted him really bad, man, because he's one of my favorite players. They got a need at the edge rush position. So I was looking at that one too. And then there were some corners that I was trying to think about: Nate Wiggins, Denzel Burke.
Yeah.
I considered all those guys, but at the end of the day, it just came back to Matthew Stafford and protecting him, and that was the most important thing.
We have time for one more. I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to get out of here. Players you wanted to fit into round 1, and
Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker from Clemson. He came into the year as a really solid 2-phase guy, a guy who could stack and shed blocks, who was really instinctive, filling gaps. I thought he was a really good traditional linebacker, but this year he's been Barrett Carter and more. I mean, the dude has been explosive and bendy as a pass rusher. He's shown that he can steer through gaps and use that ankle flexion to finish. I mean, he has been incredibly dynamic as a playmaker on top of that 3-down utility, traditional utility. So I think he's morphing into a complete linebacker prospect and a round 1 guy. So for me, I really wanted to fit him in. I was considering him as early as the top 20, but positional value, he just ended up slipping through.
And you guys know my answer. It's McKinley Jackson, just because I want to fit McKinley Jackson and everything that I do draft related. Guys, thank you for listening. Make sure to give us 5 stars on any podcast platform that you use. Make sure that you guys are shooting us comments on YouTube as well. Make sure you guys are watching YouTube because, why wouldn't you want to see us talking? Or just put it on in the background and don't listen to it at all. I don't really care. Just get us the views. Anyways, as always, guys, I love you. Have a good week. Goodbye.